Okay, good morning. Hare Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudire Nashtaprayeshu Vadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So we're reading from Canto 3, Chapter 22, Text 6. Share my screen. Is it visible?
Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you. Okay. Dishcha me Bhagavan drishto dudarsho yo kritatmanam Dishcha padaraja sprishtam shishna me bhavata shivam. So this verse is being spoken by Swayambhuva Manu, who is speaking to Kardama Muni. So I'll read the verse again. Dishcha me Bhagavan drishto durdarsho yo kritatmanam Dishcha padaraja sprishtam Shishname bhavata shivam. Dishcha, by good fortune, may, my, Bhagavan, all powerful. Drishto, or drishtaha, is seen. Dur darshaha, not easily seen. Yaha, who? Akritatmanam, of those who have not controlled the mind and senses. Dishcha, by my good fortune. Pada raja, the dust of the feet. Sprishtam, is touched. Shishna, by the head. Me, my. Bhavataha, your. Shivam, causing all auspiciousness. Translation: It is my good fortune that I've been able to see you, for you cannot easily be seen by persons who have not subdued the mind or controlled the senses. I'm all the more fortunate to have touched with my head the blessed dust of your feet. It's a little archaic way of saying things, the blessed dust of your feet, which is nice, very nice. Okay, purport by Srila Prabhupada, very nice purport. By the way, some of the acharyas, Srila Swami, Vishwanath Chakri Thakur, Jiva Goswami, they don't have much to say in this, in the purport of this verse. They actually have just one line, but Prabhupada very kindly has given us 3 full paragraphs. So the commentary of the Prabhupada writes, the perfection of transcendental life can be achieved simply by touching the holy dust of the lotus feet of a holy man. In the Bhagavatam it is said, Mahatpada Rajobhishekam, which means to be blessed by the holy dust of the lotus feet of a Mahat, a great devotee. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Mahatmanastu Mampartha. Those who are great souls under the spell of spiritual energy, and their symptom is that they fully engage in Krishna consciousness for the service of the Lord. Therefore, they are called Mahat. Unless one is fortunate enough to have the dust of the lotus feet of a Mahatma on one's head, there is no possibility of perfection in spiritual life. The parampara system of disciplic succession is very important as a means of spiritual success. One becomes a Mahat by the grace of his Mahat spiritual master. If one takes shelter of the lotus feet of a great soul, there is every possibility of one's also becoming a great soul. When Maharaj Rahugana asked Jada Bharat about his wonderful achievement of spiritual success, he replied to the king that spiritual success is not possible simply by following the rituals of religion, or simply by converting oneself into a sannyasi, or offering sacrifices as recommended in the scriptures. Now, these methods are undoubtedly helpful for spiritual realization, but the real effect is brought about by the grace of a Mahatma. In Vishwanath Chakri Thakur's 8 stanzas of prayers to the spiritual master, it is clearly stated that simply by satisfying the spiritual master, one can achieve the supreme success in life, and in spite of executing all ritualistic performances, if one cannot satisfy the spiritual master, one has no access to spiritual perfection. Here the word akritatmanam is very significant. Atma means body, soul, or mind. And akritatma means the common man who cannot control the senses or the mind. Because the common man is unable to control the senses and the mind, it is his duty to seek the shelter of a great soul or a great devotee of the Lord and just try to please him. That will make his life perfect. A common man cannot rise to the topmost stage of spiritual perfection simply by following the rituals and religious principles. He has to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and work under his direction faithfully and sincerely. Then he becomes perfect without a doubt. Beautiful. Purport by Prabhupada. So we go back to the verse. Dishtya me bhagavan drishto durdarsho yo kritatmanam dishtya padaraja sprishtam shishna me bhavata shivam. So 2 things that he's particularly appreciating, Swayambhuva Manu. The word dishtya is very important. Dishtya meaning by great fortune, by good fortune, by providence sometimes. So if you see, twice he uses the word dishtya in this verse. Dishtya me bhagavan drishto, and then the third line starts again. Dishtya padaraja sprishtam. In the very next verse, text 7, again he uses the word dishtya twice. The first word is dishtya, and then dishtya. So 4 times he uses the word dishtya to talk about his fortune, feeling deeply grateful for this exchange that he's having with Kardama Muni. And right after these 2 verses in text 8 onwards, Swayambhuva Manu makes his request of why he even comes. His request is actually what exactly Kardama Muni had requested from the Lord himself. He wanted a suitable companion to continue on in his service. And all of a sudden comes Swayambhuva Manu with his daughter saying, here you go, can you please accept my daughter? So that starts with text 8. So just before his request, Swayambhuva Manu is expressing to Kardama Muni his genuine gratitude. 4 times he uses the word dishtya. His genuine gratitude for this awesome opportunity to exchange with Kardama Muni. And so each of these dishtya indicate what he is grateful for, and it progressively grows in terms of relevance, or you could say the power of mercy. So the first 2 lines, it says dishtya, that I have great fortune that I can see you, drishta. Because usually durdarsho, you're very difficult to see. Such persons like you are very difficult to see for those who are akritatmanam, who are not controlled in their mind and senses. So the first level of mercy, one could say, that Swayambhuva Manu is appreciating here is the mercy of being able to see a very pure soul like Kardan Muni. So he's appreciating the opportunity to even see Kardan Muni. The next level of mercy, Dishtya Pada Rajas Prishtam, is that not only is able to see him, he appreciates Kardan Muni enough that he paid obeisances to Kardan Muni and touched his head to the ground where his head received the dust of his lotus feet. So Pada Raja is the dust of the feet of a devotee. Sprishtam is to touch. So my head, Shishna, touched the lotus, the dust from your lotus feet, which is all auspicious, Shivam. He says, for that I'm very fortunate. So this is the next level of mercy. One level of mercy is to be able to see a devotee, a great devotee. The next level of mercy is to be able to receive the dust, to pay obeisances to such a great devotee, to have such respect. And I'm not going to go too much into the next verse, but I just want to highlight these levels of mercy. The next verse, the Dishtya, third level of mercy, is that anugraha, that by your mercy you have given me anushishto, you've given me instructions. That's the third level of mercy. In fact, it's like the essence of meeting a spiritual person or a Brahminical person is they offer their instructions. So Dishtya, he's feeling very fortunate that not only have I seen you, not only have I received the dust of your lotus feet, now you have given me your anushishta, you've given me your instructions. Wow. Because the speaking of a great soul is the, as Prabhupada would say, is the expression of their internal ecstasies. Those who are advanced or strongly advancing on the path of bhakti, they have very deep realizations of life in general and practical life, no doubt, but also about what is divinity and God and Krishna and all of the facets relating to Krishna. They have very sweet and deep realizations, and so when they speak and give instruction especially, it's super fortunate. So he's really appreciating that. And the next level, which is really interesting, the highest level of mercy, so the fourth level of mercy, is not only to be able to see a great soul, not just to touch his lotus feet or receive the dust of his lotus feet, not even to get instructions from them, but apavrate karna randre, that instruction has entered my heart. That's the highest level of mercy that's being spoken about in the next verse. So these four levels, text 6 and 7 go together. And we see this word Dishtya show up 4 times. Dishtya, great fortune. I want to take us back a little bit to the beginning of this chapter. We just started this chapter. But the exchanges between Kardan Muni and Swayambhuva Manu are really sweet. When Swayambhuva Manu came, stop sharing. When Swayambhuva Manu came, and he first, so Kardan Muni spoke, and now he's speaking. Kardan Muni really appreciated the service that Swayambhuva Manu was doing as a protector, as a Kshatriya, as a leader. And then we are seeing here how the leader, the Kshatriya, the ruler, Swayambhuva Manu, is very appreciative of the Brahmana, Kardan Muni, who is in isolation in the forest and quietly doing his own spiritual duties. But the Kshatriya recognizes such absorption in somewhat isolation has tremendous benefit to the entire society that he's ruling. So this cooperative culture between leaders and thoughtful individuals like Kardan Muni or Brahmanas is exemplary for us. In the Bhagavatam, we're seeing this culture of cooperation. This kind of culture of cooperation is very important. They protect one another. That is the purpose of the Kshatriya. And earlier, Swayambhu Manu was saying that, my dear Karan Muni, you persons like you are the heart of the Lord, and we are like the arms of the Lord. The Kshatriyas are the arms of the Lord. The arms protect the heart, but the heart nourishes the arms. So they provide mutual protection to one another. It's very important for leaders to have a consulting arm of Brahmanas. Maharaj Parikshit had a council of Brahmanas. It speaks about this in the 16th chapter of the first canto. I personally have, in my years of Krishna consciousness, I've had roles of being in the Brahmanical council as well as being in the Kshatriya role, and it's so important to have that. The opposite is when you don't have this mutual respect and appreciation between leaders and counselors that they can trust, confidants, if you will. The kings used to have ministers, that's another model. If you don't have that good relationship, what happens? You have situations such as the story of Vena, we learn in the 4th canto, which is coming up, next canto. King Vena, he created a mess. The Brahmanas were trying to advise him to not make a mess, and he couldn't but make a mess. Ultimately, he was sort of churned after he was killed by the Brahmanas, and then King Prithu and Archie came out of that corpse of King Vena. So autocratic government, largely autocratic and abusive government, often is because the government doesn't have good relationships with a very thoughtful, progressive-minded council of Brahmanas. In our movement too, one might see in our experience that there have been leaders, you could say there have been gurus, in fact, but they were leaders. Primarily, they were Kshatriyas, and they were expanding the movement in significant ways for Srila Prabhupada. Unfortunately, they couldn't continue that service. They'd fall down. We've had many, many devotees, even till today, we still hear of these stories where leaders doing amazing service desist. They kind of fall off the map. Why? Very often, their stories is, I was under a lot of stress, I was really struggling, I didn't know what to do in my, and how to get support, because it was very embarrassing to reach out for support during these times. And so they would crumble under the pressure of being a leader. So the need for having, they said, I know what to talk to. So the need for having this kind of mutual love and appreciation between the leader, Swayambhu Manu in this case, and Kadan Muni is so necessary for a healthy society, for an awesome community to grow. And Swayambhu Manu was very well respected. He had an awesome, he had a great leadership style. He did amazing service as a king. So very important point, very important. We learn from the Bhagavatam these subtleties of how to build nice communities. So back to this verse, Dishcha me Bhagavan Drishto Durdarsho Yo Kritatmanam. The first two lines, the appreciation that Swayambhu Manu is having is that those who are uncontrolled in their senses and mind are unable to see. Is very difficult. Durdarsha. Darsha is to see. Durdarsha means dur is difficult or bad. So very difficult to see such great souls as you. I believe in India, the Doordarshan is still there. But that dur is more like far, to see things from far. So that's television, really. And that at one point in time, I believe that was the only channel available in India. But here the word Durdasha is referring to, it's hard for uncontrolled mind and senses to see great souls. That's both literal and figurative, in the sense that, great souls also have material bodies. So why can't one see them? Well, you can see them, but to actually see who they are, very difficult. I've been studying Madhurya Kadambini in preparation for Thanksgiving seminar. And many times, as the higher stages of bhakti are being described, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that no one can understand people in ruchi, asakti, bhava, because they see them as mad. They see them as distracted, when in reality they're very deeply realized. And advanced soul sees them as tolerant and very forgiving, and advanced souls can see them. But normal akritatmanam, those who are uncontrolled, as this verse is saying, they cannot see them for who they really are. Many people saw Srila Prabhupada physically, but they weren't able to appreciate Prabhupada. That's the point, to be able to appreciate a soul, that a great soul. That's the meaning of being able to see. But it also means, like Kardan Muni, he was in an isolated environment in the forest. Prayena deva munayo soy mukti kama maunam charanti vijane namparartha nishta. According to Prahlad Maharaj, that most spiritualists live in isolation. So it's hard to see them. The next two lines. Also, I wanted to share this song with you. One of my favorite songs. It's called E Boru Koruna Koro. Some of you may know it. See if I can share my screen here. This is by Narottam Das Thakur. E Baro Koruna Koro, Vaishnava Gosai, Patita Pavan Toma, Bina Kehonai. That you are most merciful, my dear Vaishnava Gosai, and most fallen, you save the most fallen. Who can be better than you? And then the third line is what I wanted to share. Gangara Parasha Hoile Pashtate Pavan. That the Ganges, after many times of taking bath in the Ganges, one becomes purified. However, Darshane Pavitra Koro, Etumaragun. Your nature, your quality is such that just taking your darshan, just being able to see you, purifies one. You don't have to go to the Ganges so many times. You could say the Ganges comes to us in the form of great spiritual teachers. This is the power of being able to see a great devotee. I actually wanted to share some other thing. Prabhupada referenced this in the purport. Now the point about touching the lotus feet of the devotee or receiving the dust of the lotus feet of the devotee. In the purport, Prabhupada gives the example of Maharaj Rahugana when he asked Jad Bharat, how did he become so successful spiritually? And then Jad Bharat told him this verse. Prabhupada paraphrases it here, that spiritual success is not possible simply by following the rituals of religion or simply converting oneself into a sannyasi or offering sacrifices, etc. Very important. These are undoubtedly helpful, but the real effect is brought out by the grace of a Mahatma. So it's in Rahuganeta tapasana yati na chejayad na nirvapanadva na chandasam naiva jalagni sure vina mahatpada rajobhishekam. Beautiful verse. So he's telling, O King Rahugana, not by tapasa, not by severe austerities penance, not by ijaya, meaning deity worship, or nirvapanad, nirvapanad, which is finishing all material duties or accepting sannyas, nachandasa, not by observing celibacy or studying the Vedic literatures, na jalagni surya, not by performing austerities such as keeping oneself in water, burning in fire, scorching the sun, vina. Doing all of that, vina, without the Mahat Pada Rajo Abhishekam, taking the Abhishek of the great souls upon one's head. It's not possible to make spiritual progress. It's not happening. And many of us may struggle with anarthas. Prahlad Maharaj also has a similar message where he says, um, Naishamatistavadurukramangrim sparshatyanarthapagamo yadartaha Mahiyasam, again, Padarajobhishekam. Again, we see the same Padaraja Abhishek, to take Abhishek of the dust of the lotus feet of great souls. Nishkinchananam navrinita yavat. Translation: unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, completely freed from material contamination, persons very much inclined towards materialistic life cannot be attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, who is glorified for his uncommon activities. Only by becoming Krishna conscious and taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, in this way one can be freed from material contamination. We see the depth of gratitude by Swayambhu Manu just being able to have this small, brief exchange with Karan Muni, and the levels of what he's feeling grateful for. Initially for being able to see him, then feeling deeply grateful for to be able to touch his lotus feet, then feeling even more gratitude because he gave him instructions, and then most grateful because those instructions entered into his heart, dishtya, by great fortune. Prahlad Maharaj, in speaking to Hiranyakashipu, saying how this dust of the lotus feet is so important to make progress in Krishna consciousness, the anartha to go away. Naisham mati stavad urukramangrim sparshatya nartha. The word anartha comes there. These anarthas that chain us down and disturb our our life. These anarthas are removed by the blessings of the touch or the dust of the lotus feet of the pure devotees. And when one actually experiences that to full effect, keep in mind Swayambhava Manu and Karan Muni are having a very brief exchange, right? They're somewhat on peer levels. Yet if there is this strong experience of how that dust of the lotus feet of a great devotee has changed my life, it is absolutely, one cannot stop oneself of feeling this ecstatic level of love that's born from unfettered gratitude. So much so we see this, that maturing of that gratitude into ultimate love when Prahlad Maharaj is seeing Narsingadev. I mean, you see the Lord, the goal of our life, to see the Lord in front. He's seeing the Lord in front of him. He says, Evam janam nipatitam prabhavahi kupe. That my life, I was headed towards a ditch well, blind well, full of snakes. I was going in the wrong direction, like seriously wrong. Kama bhikama manuya prapata prasangat. I was just trying to follow my material desires. With everybody else around me, we're all materialists. We're just moving forward, trying to satisfy our material desires. Kritvatmasat surashina bhagavan grihita. The complete, full realization of that fourth level of mercy, that he had received within his heart the instructions from Narada Muni, where he became a pure, realized soul. Prahlad was So deeply grateful. And then the last line, Soham katham nuvisaje tava bhritya sevam. He's in front of Nrsingadev. He's not asking for liberation. He's not asking for even Nrsingadev's service. He says, I'm so indebted, like superlatively indebted to Narada Muni. How can I leave his service? Please put me in his service. I mean, he was so the gratitude had become love. Like we hear our spiritual masters say, gratitude is the seed of love. What more? How much more one love can one express that in your front of the Lord, and you're thinking, please let me, my dear Lord, if you want to give me a benediction, please give me service. I don't want to leave his service, Narad Muni's service. So that kind of gratitude in that Swayambhuva Manu is sharing or expressing to Karad Muni here, in its full maturity, we see it in the expression between Prahlad Maharaj and Nrsingadev. One of the most moving sections of the Bhagavatam. Okay, I'll pause there and see if there's any comments or questions anyone has. Any reflection, something that you picked up from the conversation today?
Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much. It's a very beautiful topic, and hearing from you made it even more beautiful and special. Thank you so much. I know it's the context is to glorify the potency of the spiritual master and these devotees, very amazing devotees. And I was really touched by that word, rarely seen or not to be seen, but yet seen. I was just thinking of our situation, I mean, my situation also. What's the possibility? Forget about sitting in front of these amazing devotees and hearing, but even to be able to get a glimpse, even to be seen by them. I have actually heard, like, just one of their glance on you, that's it. Like, it could change the course of your life. So it's very beautiful. I know the context is that. But I just wanted to bring this aspect. Prabhupada is writing actually two times in the purport. It's not by following the rituals or regulations that you would get advancement, but it's really this association of the Mahats. We know the association of the Mahats and taking their lotus feet includes following their instructions, which is following the rules and rituals, maybe. But I keep having this thought. I'm like, what's the point of my inattentive sadhana? Like, okay, I chant or I read or hearing maybe a little more attentive compared to the others. But what's the point of this? And just this association or serving these devotees, I mean, not only elevated devotees, any devotees. Somehow my contemplation or inspiration is that that can actually help me for purification and progress. I don't know much about my personal, sadhana per se. I know it may not be wholesome idea, but I just want to bring it here, particularly in that context of not so much. I mean, I'm not just saying external rules and regulations. Even we can take japa or whichever is the case. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that, Prabhu. Thank you.
Is your contemplation, if service to the great souls is so critical, crucial, important, why not simply, or why not pay much more attention to that than, let's say, the rituals of Krishna conscious activities such as chanting, deity worship, etc.?
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Mm. Service to the great souls means to please them. Is where we're trying to give them joy and happiness, satisfaction. Bhajaniya Parama Purusha Sukhamatra Swasukatvam. That's the essence of service. Is you want to see that that person becomes happy, or that person, you can contribute to that person's joy. They all are joyful. You want to contribute to that person's joy. That Sukhamatra, the continuous joy of that person, Swasukatvam, is the essence of my happiness. Like, what does my happiness look like? It looks like that they're being happy. So when we study the life of great souls, especially those who we are personally attached to and have relationship with, we try to learn about them and what gives them pleasure. Like learning about Prabhupada, just as an example, learning about Prabhupada. What is it that made Prabhupada smile? And Prabhupada would see his devotees chanting Hare Krishna and he would smile. Prabhupada would see his devotees serving the deities very nicely and he would smile. Prabhupada would see his devotees attending class and they would make him happy. So it seemed very simple. Sometimes our complicated materialistic minds think we have to do big, great, amazing, wonderful, fantastic, earth-shattering things. Start a temple in Antarctica to please the spiritual master. But that smile, to see that smile, can come just by paying attention to the holy name. That's their pleasure. That's the smile, is to engage in the bhakti activities with sincerity and faith, like Prabhupada said at the end of the purport we read. That smile is, we have to understand what's the heart of the devotee. What is it that makes them enlivened? That's why Prabhupada said many times people would ask, how to please you? Become Krishna conscious. I had a meeting with my spiritual master. I had a similar conversation with him. He said, become Krishna conscious. Okay. Become Krishna conscious. That's what will make them smile. So if you want to serve, we have to more deeply tie the two together and don't see them as distinct. That's my response. What do you think?
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, makes sense. Understanding what is that service. It's not like a physical, external, menial service. It's not just the serving the devotees, but going deeper. It's becoming Krishna conscious. That's so beautiful. I was thinking, I don't know about whatever perfection or anything. If I can reduce one little headache to my spiritual master or the authorities, with my conduct and my behavior, that I would think as success. I mean, if I'm not causing extra to what they have to already deal with. So there is so much embedded in that, becoming Krishna conscious, the more and more, subtleties of it. So it's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to share a reflection from the verse?
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam, all glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Haribo, Prabhu.
Wonderful class. You reminded many, with the references, with the many, how you serve the lotus feet of the spiritual master and what is the benefit of it. So I was, as just a reflection, how many devotees would have come to, in the devotees in the sense, like how many became devotees just by association 1 or 2 times of association of Srila Prabhupada.
Mm.
I remember one devotee is my friend, close friend. His mom used to take him when he was a very small child, and he went to so many gurus. Can you please bless him? Can you please bless him? Touch his lotus feet, bless him, bless him. And somehow my friend, when I was a little boy, he in fact saw Srila Prabhupada. That means he got the blessings from Srila Prabhupada. He was a very small child. And of course, they would have gone to many places, to many saints. But what pulled him to ISKCON and serve ISKCON in the Parampara, that was the thought. That thought came to me, that how a pure devotee's mercy can flow. And then not just that, he's preaching like crazy. When he preaches in the theater. Around 100 people come every, once in a week, something like that. All the Westerners. His preaching is amazing, and the way how many people became devotees just because of him. So I was just reflecting on just once blessings of Srila Prabhupada, how he made his life changes.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you for that class, bro.
Another good example of that is one meeting with Prabhupada, or a few meetings with Prabhupada, but that one Russian devotee, never to
Mm.
return. Prabhupada never returned
Mm.
with Shamsundar Prabhu. And today, the largest demographic in ISKCON movement, aside from Indians in India, is Russians. They've taken over Mayapur and Vrindavan, for example, just by that
Absolutely.
one devotee who got Prabhupada's mercy for a few days. That's it.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah, thank you for sharing. Nice. Okay, anyone else? All right, thank you
Hare
all.
Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much. I was thinking about this. I mean, literal meaning, right? They are touching the dust of the lotus feet of a great personality of the devotee. So, I mean, I think you gave the example of, I mean, I think Prabhupada talked about Maharaj Raghuna, right? In that case, it was literally, and also he actually surrenders, right? I mean, to Jada Bharat, right? Just not, I mean,
Not initially, but yeah, later.
yeah, later. So I mean, because a lot of people touches the dust of, I mean, India when we see, right? I mean, when a great sadhu or saintly person goes, and many people touches the lotus feet, right? But generally, I mean, I don't know. I think the examples are there. I mean, there are instances where they turn out to be, I mean, great devotees later. I mean, the people who are touching, but I mean, many people touches it, but it is actually just a kind of a ritual, right? So does that, I mean, how does that help them? I mean,
How does that,
really,
what kind of effect does it have?
yeah.
So we talked about levels of mercy.
Mm.
First level of mercy is being able to see a devotee. And we also mentioned that the seeing of devotee has a lot to do with not just physically seeing them, but by appreciating them, respecting them, right? Because some can see a devotee, but what's if there isn't that appreciation for a devotee, you don't really see them for who they are. So that's the first level of mercy. The second level is to touch the lotus feet of devotee with that appreciation and respect. So if there isn't there in India, for example, that happens a lot, is your example, and people touch the lotus feet of great souls. They may do it unknowingly. They may do it not necessarily with much respect, even. They do it because it's a ritual, like especially with our kids. We tell them, to pay obeisance to their elders or whatever, or to great souls, or, they do it mechanically. It's not with their heart, right? So, like that, even though it's imitation or not, just out of ritualistic nature, etc., it has benefit. of course, the benefit is way more if one is walking in like Swayambhuva Manu with that sense of appreciation of who he's coming to see. Gardan Muni is such a great person. So now we can't necessarily do a whole survey, multi-life analysis and research around how a person who ritualistically touches somebody's feet over multiple lives, how that life changes because of having touched that feet, right? They probably do other things that also give benefit. But as scriptures say, they give benefit, so we trust it. One comment about Jat Bharat and King Rahugana, Srila Vishwanath Chakri Thakur explains that King Rahugana actually offended Jat Bharat, didn't he? Like pretty badly. He like insulted him. Now, how in the world did King Rahugana get so much mercy after offending Jat Bharat to that such a strong degree? Because one would imagine if you offend a devotee, that's it, your spiritual life is done. Forget it, you're not going to make progress. There are very few examples, Vishwanath Chakri Thakur says, where by a devotee's mercy, and in this case, Jat Bharat, because of the level of a devotee that he was, he did not take offense. He pushed mercy onto King Rahugana, even though King Rahugana had offended him, and Krishna would not have forgiven that. But he was so merciful, Jat Bharat, with King Rahugana, that he overwhelmed him with mercy. So Rahugana made tremendous spiritual progress despite having offended Jat Bharat. Interesting. That's a special story. It's not the norm. Okay, Prabhu?
Thank you.
All right. I thank you all very much. We'll catch you next time. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Yes.